Internet, and welcome to another Random Thoughts with Game Penguin. Now, today I decided to be talking about something else uh, that's I find very interesting because I do it, and that's OCs. OCs is, for those of you who don't know, OCs, or original characters as they are more formally called, are basically um, characters created by a person, and you could that's a very broad term, but I mean specifically made by a person, and it's based in like another universe or something like that, or like a pre-existing universe where it's based in your own person's universe, and you can kind of say that that's for everyone, but it's, again, for those of you who just don't understand, it's basically a community created thing. Like, there's a fan of this community, and he creates a character. That character is called an OC, basically. It's a fan created character in a very general sense of a term. Uh, it doesn't have to be a fan, but that's like the most common example. Uh, and a lot of people don't seem, and there's a lot of people that uh, create these characters for various reasons, and they have a bunch of different things. And you might be interested in creating your own OC if you really wanted to. You might be created in your own OC, or you might have already created your own OC, or are in the process of creating one. I don't know. But I would say that an OC is, in my eyes at least, kind of an extension of yourself. Not like an improvement, but an extension of yourself. Kind of like how in an old philosophy a sword is an extension of your arm. I think an OC is an extension of your brain, of your personality, of yourself. It's like not a blatant copy, but it like gives an aspect of yourself that you can express through this visual medium. And I think that that's very interesting. And yeah, so one of the things that you want to keep in mind when creating an OC is to, okay, so I have a few tips here for if you really want to create an OC. And that's the following. The three tips that I have here are don't make it a Mary Sue. Don't over make sure you can draw it over and over again, and don't be afraid in evolving either the look of the character or the feel of the character. That third one is going to take some explaining, but I'm going to knock out the other two really quick. The first one, don't make it a Mary Sue, is actually fairly simple. Basically, make sure that the character has a conflict. Having a conflict is what kind of makes a character in most ways. If a character doesn't have a conflict, that character doesn't have an obstacle to overcome, they're called a Mary Sue. It's a term in literature basically used to describe a character that has no conflict, that never evolves really, or never really learns anything from his adventures. So it can go on all these awesome, really good adventures, but never learn a single thing because it's already either learned everything or just refuses to learn anything and just keeps doing it, which is the definition of insanity. But you should try and avoid doing this as much as you should try and avoid doing this, which I'm pretty sure about 90% of people do anyway. The other people that actually create these Mary Sues kind of do it for probably do it for various reasons, and it's very hard for them, and it's very hard to pin down specifically why they do it and why they make these why they make them. But personally, I think it's for a few reasons, and I don't really want to get into them because I don't want people to hate me for saying like, "Oh, I make my OCs this and this and this." It's like, dude, I don't care. I really don't. Um, but a cool story though. The thing about an OC is that there are many unspoken rules about it, and this is one of the biggies. Uh, don't make it like a very godlike creature or something like that. Like God's perfect creation. He broke the mold after making this one person that's gonna rule the entire universe or whatever. And be like a very this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's cool and all, but what's his conflict? Doesn't have one. I don't know. But the second, but you should, but definitely to close this out, you should definitely try to avoid making this character a Mary Sue or making a character that has literally zero conflict. So the second thing that you need to keep in mind is being able to draw it over and over again. Drawing it over and over again not only is good practice for other art because you can incorporate certain other aspects of your OCs when you're drawing your OC into certain other arts. For instance, if you draw a humanoid character, you might be getting better at drawing their faces or drawing their hair or like drawing the person's body, intellectual the process of the fingers due to various poses and things and this and this. And all that can be improved just through drawing. And being able to draw the same character over and over again, but with changes made not visually, but but not changes made visually to the character, but visually in the way that he's either posed, the way that he's looked at, how he can manipulate the world or whatever, and what he can do. All of that can be done through just basically visual drawing. And the third one, and this is another very important one, is don't be afraid to have the character evolve and change in the process of creating the character. Let me use an example for this one, as this varies from case to case. Sometimes you create a character that's so perfect that you just can't get rid of it, or you make very minimal changes in the long run. I've had a couple characters that I've created, and one of them I created by pure a couple of them I've created by pure accident. One of these such characters, I call him Sir Buckethead. Sir Buckethead is basically a character that I created, uh, literally just sitting completely and utterly bored in the classroom of my art class. So the assignment was to create an animation, and we were in the process of doing that, and I was just sitting alone in class, looking literally like at a wall or whatever, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, how the hell am I supposed to do this? And then eventually I just thought of this weird thing. I thought of this huge epic anime fight scene with a bunch of flips and stuff. And then I'm like, no, I can't really make that. I don't, with the limitations and my knowledge, I can't really do that. Then for whatever reason, I thought of chess. Don't know why I did, but I just thought of it, and then I thought of these and then I thought of a funny situation in which two people were playing chess, and one of them just takes it really far and takes it really seriously, similar to how certain RPGers and stuff like that, and those people who are the the people who embody their characters fully and wear it out on their skin because the character is them and they always want to be that character. They basically embody the character 24/7, 365. And yeah, and that's basically what I did, and I decided that that would be a funny situation, and it was. It was really funny to see this huge. It was really funny to first off see this huge epic battle between a couple knights duking it out on the battlefield, but it's just in the end being that the one guy is taking the piece in a chess game, which is very weird. But I liked it. And then the punchline again was the character taking it too far and just making it really about the way that he is. And it's really interesting the way that I created him because and now to get into the actual fact of this, when I originally created him, he originally had a box on his head, but I decided that that wouldn't make much sense as he would like to be a knight and not anything else. Anything that was kind of a box like didn't make any sense in the long run because a box just doesn't really make any sense when you're putting it in a kind of night situation. So I'm thinking, what else do I put? Well, a bucket looks like a helmet, so I'll put that on his head. But yeah, and I kept, and this is again harking back to the tip I gave before, which was keeping it simple. Since I basically just put a bucket on his head and just cut out holes for his eyes and mouth, his face was very simple, and the face is a very big part of the character. And I wanted to embody certain specific aspects of him showing emotions, facial expressions through the bucket. And I thought that it would be funny to do like what Deadpool does, and just make the expressions, his eyes and sometimes his mouth more, but more often than not, it's exclusively his eyes. And I think that that's like a very simple design, and I was able to draw it over and over again, and I really liked the design in the end, and it was really cool, which is very interesting. So, if you want to create your own character, here are a few steps that I can definitely say you want to try and go through. Most of these steps can be done in pretty much any order, but this is the order that I mainly kind of do when I'm creating a character. Number one, start with a question or a universe. Just start with a random thought in your head and see where it goes. Like I said before, originally when I was sitting in class, I was thinking of just chess. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I was thinking of chess. And I just somehow turned that into the awesome anime fight scene and made an awesome character out of it regardless. And that was a very kind of breakthrough moment. And when you get that breakthrough moment, you always want to be striding for that big breakthrough moment where you're like, oh, okay, so this is this, and then once that first puzzle piece falls down, you'll be able to create an entire picture from that single puzzle piece. Because once that falls into place, everything else around it just tends to fall in, so long as you understand where you're going with it. But again, as I said, most of these steps can be done in any order. You just need to find that one puzzle piece and then go from there. The second thing, or the second one that I did, was draw it. Drawing it is a good way to make sure that you have a visual picture of the character in your head. Some people can't do this, where they need to have like an auditory message in their head, or like a different, or like they need to write out what they think the character should look like. But basically, make sure that you can get a representation of the character in its very early stages. And harking back to the tip that I said before, do not be afraid. This is not your final product. This is just a good starting point. Again, finding that starting point, finding that first puzzle piece to create the entire picture is very crucial, especially in the early stages, in making a very compelling OC and a very compelling character in general. The third one is basically coming up with a name. Coming up with a name for the character might take you, it might be its own step and it might be its own thing, but coming up with a name is okay, and it doesn't have to be done. You can just create a character and not name it, but again, more often than not, what's the point of creating a character if you're not going to really name it? But that's, again, another thing that they have, is that the character doesn't actually have to be named. Going to a video game called Fallout 4, going to the Fallout series, there is this character who doesn't have a name. He's just called the Mysterious Stranger. It's not his official name, it's just a title given to him by the people. And again, titles and names kind of interchangeable, but they have very specific differences that differentiate them, if you really want to figure that out. And you also, the next thing that you kind of want to do is come up with a backstory. Again, this is the way that I do it. I work from the question and I work backwards. I work from the question, working backwards mainly, as some people would call it. Working backwards from the visual design to the backstory. Some people create the backstory first, then the visual design, then they name the character. Sometimes they'll create the character name first and then create a visual designer on that. I'm a very visual person, so if I don't have a picture of what I think it should look like, I'm not going to create anything else based on that character. So I personally need to create a visual representation of what I think the character should look like, and that will give me a general sense of the rest of the character. So yeah, and that's how I basically do it. And finally, to close this off, OCs can be created by literally anyone, for literally anything. The reasons is, to hark back to the beginning of what I said, an OC, in my eyes, should not be just a wish fulfillment person thing that exists to exclusively grant your wishes. It should not be that, more or less. It should be a visual representation of yourself. Uh, it should be a visual representation of yourself and how, and it should be a very interesting, very nice kind of character. It doesn't have to be perfect right off the bat. No character is ever perfect. It doesn't have to look great right off the bat. You could literally just draw a stick figure and call it Steve. It doesn't matter. So long as you keep this character in mind and keep evolving, changing, manipulating, doing everything you can to make this character awesome, you can come up with some great visual designs as well as some great characters. So yes, this has been my random thoughts on OCs and characters created by fans. I want to thank you all for watching, and peace off.